Welcome to WikiPodcast.
Hello.
Today, we're diving deep, really deep, into ancient Egypt.
Yes, specifically their whole worldview surrounding death and what comes after.
Exactly. We're looking at how these incredibly elaborate ideas about the afterlife weren't just, abstract thoughts. They actually drove them to build, monuments that have lasted millennia.
It's fascinating stuff. We're
Yeah.
trying to understand why they poured so much energy, so
Yeah.
many resources into tombs, into mummies, into all these funerary practices. Why build for eternity?
Our main source for this is the Ancient Egyptian Religion page on Wikipedia.
Okay.
It gives a really comprehensive overview.
It does. So our mission today is to unpack that, pull out the key ideas about their afterlife concept and see how profoundly it shaped, everything they did.
And maybe uncover some surprising facts along the way.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's jump in. The afterlife. It wasn't just a side note for them, was it? It seems central.
Oh, absolutely central. You could argue it was the central preoccupation of their religion. Their whole culture seems saturated with this concern for the soul's survival after death.
It's interesting that they didn't even have a word for religion in the way we think of it.
Right. Because it wasn't separate. It wasn't something you did on a certain day. It was just the fundamental way they understood the world. The constant interplay between humans and the divine.
So when someone died, what was the immediate belief? What happened to, their essence?
They believed part of the soul, the Ka, which you could maybe translate as the life force, it left the physical body at death.
The Ka, okay.
But, and this is key, the Ka still needed sustenance. It still needed energy, even after death.
Hence the offerings. The food and drink left in tombs wasn't just symbolic then.
Not at all. They genuinely believed the Ka needed those offerings to, keep going. It needed that spiritual nourishment.
Okay, so there's the Ka. What else? I remember reading about the Ba.
Yes, the Ba. That was different. If the Ka was the vital essence, the Ba was more about individuality, the unique spiritual characteristics that make you you. I think personality, maybe?
And the Ba, did it leave the body too?
It was sort of attached to the body, unlike the Ka.
Yeah.
The goal of the funerary rituals was actually to help the Ba detach and travel freely,
To what exactly?
to eventually reunite with the Ka. When the Ka and Ba successfully came together again, the person became an Akh.
An
Akh, sort of an effective transfigured spirit, someone who had made it, successfully navigated the transition.
And this is where mummification comes in, right? It seems like a lot of effort if the spirit is just leaving.
It does, but it was crucial for the Ba. The belief was that the Ba had to return to the preserved body every night.
Every night, why?
To receive new life, to be revitalized. Think of it like recharging its spiritual batteries. Then in the morning, it could emerge again as an Akh. So a well-preserved body was essential for this whole cycle. No body, no nightly recharge for the Ba.
Wow, okay. That makes sense. Now, these beliefs weren't static, were they? Did they change over time, especially for, say, the pharaohs?
Oh, definitely. In the very early days, the Old Kingdom, the idea for the pharaoh was quite different.
How so?
They thought the deceased king ascended directly into the sky, became one of the stars, the imperishable stars in the north.
Just straight up to the cosmos, no underworld journey.
Not initially for the king. It was a celestial destiny, but that changed as other gods became more prominent.
Like Ra and Osiris.
Exactly. As Ra, the sun god, and Osiris, the ruler of the underworld, grew in importance, the pharaoh's afterlife journey became linked to them.
So less stargazing, more divine commute.
Sort of. The king's fate became tied to Ra's daily cycle of death and rebirth as the sun traveled through the night, and also to Osiris's role as the judge and ruler of the dead. His successful journey was vital for cosmic order, for Ma'at.
Ma'at, that's the concept of truth, order, balance.
Yes.
It's the fundamental order of the universe. The pharaoh's transition ensured that order continued. So, by the New Kingdom, the afterlife picture is more complex. There's this journey through the Duat.
That's right. The Duat, this mysterious, dangerous realm associated with both death and rebirth. It wasn't a pleasant stroll.
This sounds ominous, full of challenges.
Definitely. Demons, gates, tests. And the climax of this journey was the final judgment.
The famous weighing of the heart scene, you see it everywhere.
Absolute iconic. Osiris presiding, often with the assessors of Ma'at, these 42 other divine judges.
And the heart is weighed against a feather.
The feather of Ma'at, the shoe feather, symbolizing truth, justice, cosmic harmony. The heart, which they believed held the record of your actions, your intellect, your conscience.
Had to balance perfectly against truth itself.
Exactly. If it was heavy with misdeeds, it failed the test. If it balanced, the person was declared true of voice.
And what happened then? if you passed.
Your Ka and Ba could finally unite. You became that effective spirit, the Ak.
And where did the Ankh end up? Was it just one place?
Well, here again, there were sort of coexisting ideas. One popular destination was the realm of Osiris,
What was that like?
often depicted as a lush, fertile land, like an idealized version of Egypt, really. The field of reeds, eternal farming, maybe, but in a good way.
Sounds peaceful. What was the other option?
The other main idea, initially more for royalty but later democratized, was joining the sun god Ra on his solar bark
Sailing across the sky every day.
and through the Duat every night, helping him overcome the forces of chaos. So you had this choice, or maybe these overlapping possibilities. A peaceful existence with Osiris, or this active cosmic journey with Ra.
It's interesting how it became more accessible over time. And did the Ankh, the spirit, have any connection back to the living world?
Yes, increasingly so. There was a growing belief that the Ak could affect the world of the living. They could intervene, help, or hinder their relatives.
Which explains why people might pray to or appeal to their deceased ancestors.
Precisely. It wasn't just about ensuring the dead had a good afterlife. It was also about maintaining a relationship with them, perhaps even seeking their help.
This complexity must have required some guidance, which brings us to the funerary texts. They weren't just burying people, they were giving them instruction manuals.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Yes, they developed this incredible body of literature specifically to help the dead navigate the afterlife successfully.
Starting with the pyramid texts.
Right, back in the Old Kingdom. These were spells inscribed inside the royal pyramids, purely for the pharaoh, meant to guarantee his ascent and transformation. The spells weren't always the same. They varied, different combinations for different kings.
Exclusive content for the royals, but then it broadened.
It did. By the end of the Old Kingdom and into the first intermediate period, you start seeing similar spells, the coffin texts, written on coffins.
For non-royals, too.
Yes, officials, wealthier commoners. They often included material from the pyramid texts, but also new stuff, more detailed descriptions of the underworld, maps even.
Maps of the afterlife. Wow. And then the most famous one, the Book of the Dead.
The Book of the Dead is really a New Kingdom phenomenon, though its roots are older. It wasn't a single book, but a collection of spells, chapters that could be customized.
And these were on papyrus.
Yes, often beautifully illustrated with vignettes, little pictures showing the spells in action, like the weighing of the heart. And these were produced, commercially. People could buy scrolls to be buried with them. Much wider access.
A bestseller for the recently deceased. Were there other kinds of texts, too?
Yes, especially in the New Kingdom. For royalty, primarily at first, you get the books of the Netherworld.
Like the Amduat.
Exactly, the Amduat, the Book of Gates, the Book of Caverns. These gave very structured, almost hour-by-hour accounts of Ra's journey through the Duat. Very detailed, describing the beings, the challenges, the geography of the underworld. Again, initially royal, but elements filtered out more widely later.
It's an amazing amount of written material focused purely on death. And the rituals, like the opening of the mouth.
A crucial one, performed on the mummy or a statue just before burial. Using special tools, priests would symbolically touch the mouth, eyes, nose, ears.
To restore the senses.
Yes, to allow the deceased to speak, eat, see, hear again in the afterlife. To be able to receive the offerings and participate fully.
And the offerings themselves, this wasn't just a one-off at the funeral.
No. Ideally, there was an ongoing cult. Relatives, or often hired funerary priests, were supposed to maintain the offerings in the tomb chapel. Food, drink, incense.
Keeping the Khan nourished.
Exactly. Though, realistically, these cults often only lasted a generation or two. People forget, resources shift.
But the belief in the deceased's power remained. Right, you mentioned letters to the dead.
Yes, we have actual letters written on pottery bowls or papyrus left at tombs. People asking deceased relatives for help with family problems, legal issues, even asking them to stop bothering them if they felt haunted.
Seriously? Complaining to the dead?
Absolutely. It shows how real they believed the act's influence was. They weren't remote. They were potentially active participants in the world.
So all this belief, these texts, these rituals, they directly lead to the tombs themselves. They weren't just graves. They were designed as eternal homes.
That's the perfect description. Eternal dwellings. It started simply burying bodies in the desert sand. The hot, dry sand actually led to natural mummification.
Oh, right. So artificial mummification developed later.
Yes. When they started building more elaborate tombs to protect the body and the grave goods, the natural preservation stopped working as well. So they had to invent ways to preserve the body artificially. Mummification became necessary because of the tombs, in a way.
And the tomb structures evolved dramatically
Mhm.
from mastabas.
Those early rectangular flat-top structures made of mud brick, they had the burial chamber underground and a chapel above ground for the offerings.
To the pyramids, the ultimate statement piece.
Absolutely. Old Kingdom royalty. Huge symbolic structures representing the primeval mound from which creation began. Always part of a larger complex with mortuary temples for the king's ongoing cult.
But pyramid building didn't last forever.
No, it was incredibly resource-intensive. In the Middle and New Kingdoms, there was a shift. First for commoners and nobles, then even for pharaohs, towards rock-cut tombs.
Cut directly into cliffs, like in the Valley of the Kings.
Exactly. Less conspicuous, theoretically harder to rob, though robbers were persistent. They still had mortuary chapels, sometimes nearby, sometimes further away as part of larger temples.
And inside these eternal dwellings, it wasn't just the mummy, was it?
Oh no, they packed them full. Statues of the deceased were crucial. If the mummy was damaged, the statue could serve as a substitute home for the ka or ba.
A backup body. Smart.
Then you had models of servants, bakers, brewers, farmers. The little figures called shabtis meant to magically come alive and do any work required of the deceased in the afterlife.
So you wouldn't have to plow the fields in the Field of Reeds yourself?
That was the idea. Plus, furniture, clothes, tools, games, weapons, cosmetics, basically anything you might need or want. And magical amulets, of course, for protection.
Like the scarab beetle.
Scarabs, Eye of Horus amulets, Diogony pillars, loads of them, each offering specific protection or power.
And the tomb walls themselves were part of this provision.
Yes, the artwork wasn't just decoration. Scenes of farming, feasting, hunting, they were believed to magically provide those things for the deceased for eternity. Images of food could literally sustain the K.
It's just layers upon layers of ensuring survival and comfort. Finally, how does this all connect back to kingship and Maat, that cosmic order?
It's deeply intertwined. The pharaoh wasn't just a political leader, he was the chief intermediary between Egypt and the gods. His primary job was upholding Ma'at,
And building temples was part of that.
a huge part. Building and maintaining temples for the gods, and also the massive mortuary temples for deceased pharaohs, was a core royal duty. It kept the gods happy, which kept the cosmos in balance.
So the pyramids, for instance, weren't just about the king's personal afterlife.
No, their sheer scale reflects the belief that the king's successful transition to the afterlife was essential for everyone's well-being, for the continuation of Maat, for the Nile flooding, for the sun rising. His journey guaranteed cosmic stability.
And the Osiris myth, with its themes of death and resurrection, provided a kind of model.
Absolutely. Osiris, murdered and reborn, became the archetypal resurrected king, the lord of the afterlife. Pharaohs identified closely with him in death, ensuring their own rebirth and linking them to this divine guarantee of order over chaos.
So let's try and wrap this up. What's the big takeaway here?
I think it's that for the ancient Egyptians, the afterlife wasn't just a hope or a vague belief. It was a fundamental certainty that shaped everything.
Their art, their architecture, their rituals, their social structure even. It all seems geared towards ensuring the successful continuation of life beyond death.
Precisely. This profound belief fueled these incredible feats of engineering and artistry. The mummification, the pyramids, the Valley of the Kings they built for eternity because they truly believed in eternity.
The sheer investment time, resources, human effort, it really underscores how vital this was to them emotionally and culturally. It wasn't just about fearing death, it was about meticulously planning for continued life.
And maintaining that cosmic balance, Mott, through it all. It connected the individual's fate to the fate of the entire universe.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? This deep dive into Egypt prompts a broader question for you, listening. How do beliefs about what happens after we die shape what different cultures value, what they create, and what kind of legacy they leave behind?
It's a fascinating question to ponder, the link between eschatology and civilization.
Thanks for listening. Write us in the comments your opinion on the episode and what other topics you would like us to talk about. Subscribe to the channel to help us reach more listeners. Thank you and have an amazing day.